Tuesday, October 18th, meeting of the Community Preservation Act Committee. As a preliminary matter, please note that this meeting is being recorded and all the attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you. Anything you decide to screen share on your computer or anything you broadcast will be captured and recorded. Let's do a quick little roll call and make sure we have a quorum. Julie,
Aye, here.
Wayne,
Yep. Here.
MJ,
I'm here.
Carolyn,
Here.
Eloise, and Timothy here. Eloise, anyway, abstains.
In June.
And June is here, but not official.
I'm here.
Oh, Eloise
there
is
she
here.
is.
Thank you, Eloise. With a quorum of the committee present, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:36. And the open meeting of the Community Preservation Act Committee is being completed remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency. Governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings held at a publicly accessible physical location and allows and encourages us to participate remotely. For the meeting, the CPAC is using the Zoom platform as posted on the agenda, which includes links for the public to join the meeting. Please speak clearly and accurately so minutes can be recorded. No attendees other than the panelists so far. The hearing starts in 8 minutes. We've got a few other things we can take care of. Minutes from the 20th. Do we have a motion
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
and a second?
Second.
Second.
And any additions or corrections? All right, we'll do a roll call on this. Julie,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Eloise,
Aye.
Carolyn.
I wasn't here, so I'm going to abstain.
No, you don't abstain. You just say yes.
Sure.
Minutes you can do that. You don't have to be there to approve them. I always
I did
argue.
read them.
Yes, so you approve them.
I do.
And Tim.
I-
Aye, good, nice job. And we don't have any payments that I'm aware of. We've got the ad that was in the newspaper, but I haven't seen a bill yet. We're gonna have to be clever about that. It may come to the planning board and be stuck in their mailbox and we may not see it for a bit. So I'll ask Tom about that so we can get it, so we can pay it. And the next item is the plan, which 7 minutes. What else can we do? Well, how about committee member updates? Anybody want to update us on anything exciting?
We finished our for the courts,
Your what?
our request for proposal. We finished it, so now it's in Kristen's hands. She's just
Oh,
gonna
good.
give. And then we put it out to bid. Let me see what we get.
Nice going.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
First time for everything.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
And as far as land goes, so Sudbury Valley Trustees currently is the official owner of the Horseshoe Pond property. So that part has happened. And hoping to close by the end of the first week of November so that the town will own it. And then we put in for our reimbursement with the state. And wait for the money to come back.
So at some point in November, there'll be funds transferred out of our accounts to pay that debt.
correct.
And what's your sense? Do we see a reimbursement from the state in months or weeks or years?
Certainly
Yeah.
not years. Somewhere between weeks and months. Yeah, I'm not, so we had a kickoff meeting, which I had never done one of those before and thought it was a little weird, but, so Hillary King, who is our contact at the MVP office at the state level, came in, and I guess they're used to most projects taking a long time, and she's talking about, you know, we only have so many years to put in for the reimbursement. And I stopped her, I said, we're gonna be done with this by the end of the month. Like, and she was very happy about that, you know, it was gonna be such a fast turnaround. And she didn't ever indicate, I should have thought to ask how quickly the money turns around. But I would imagine fairly quickly once we get our paperwork into them. So
Good.
Something Karen, follow up and ask.
I can.
Awesome,
Yeah.
thanks.
Good. MJ, anything to report?
Nothing I can think of terribly relevant.
Anything exciting, Eloise?
Nope. I'm into ballots.
Good for you. Yep, that's true.
My condolences.
Wayne, anything?
Nothing here.
June, you've been meeting with your consultant on your project. Do you want to say a few words while we've got a couple minutes?
I just sent an email to the commission members and to Dan, also to Scott, who is our select board connector. And I sent it to Kristen also. And I listed things that we aren't quite sure about on our workflow chart. We had a discussion when the commission met on Friday, and I dutifully recorded all those concerns and I've sent them off. Dan, our architect, met with us at the Bullard House on the 28th of September. Was that after we met?
Yes.
Yeah. And it was a very encouraging site visit. He is very down to earth and expects that he can suggest a couple of engineers who will be sensitive to our concerns about the foundation of the Bullard House and may be able to come up with solutions or at least a couple of strategies that won't require lifting the building in its entirety. And that was, you know, maybe that won't be possible, but just to have a professional tell us that it is possible was made us feel a lot better about the future.
Great.
Yeah.
You want to say something quick about Dan while we've got another minute? People might not know all the things he's
Sure.
already done in town.
Right. Dan Barton worked, first of all, on the elevator addition at the town hall, at the 1870 town hall. He conceptualized that addition, and then once the planning was in place, it was offloaded to Austin Design, who finished all the nuts and bolts and the drafting and all of that to make it happen. He also worked at 19 Carter with a similar kind of project. Those of you who have been to 19 Carter, all the accessibility is the result of an addition on the back end of that building. And it's a beautiful addition because it mimics a lot of the architectural features that are part of the church building itself. And he's a great guy to work with. He is a good listener. He's practical, but very creative. Just a wonderful blend of characteristics for us to be lucky enough to work.
Yeah, and the nice thing, like you've said, is he knows the town and he knows the center. So he's sympathetic to some of the objectives that we've got for that center village. So that's really good.
Yeah.
All right. It's 7:45. We'll call the hearing to order. I don't think we have to do anything special. We don't have any attendees.
Correct.
We're going to share a screen.
Yep, I will share my screen.
That'd be great.
If someone else can, just when I'm screen sharing, I can't see the audience to see if anyone's hands up or anything, so,
We'll keep our eyes
Um,
peeled.
all right. There we go. Zoom that out just a bit. All right. Where would you like to start?
Right there.
All right.
So, Maureen's gone through this, and there are going to be times when I'm going to ask Maureen to chime in with some of her thoughts, because we've, as she and I chatted, some of the changes that we thought we might want to discuss have to do with what we include and what we don't include, what we might include on the website as opposed to in this document, things like that. So as we go along through it, I'll ask Maureen to comment too.
Do we have access to the website?
Tonight?
No, just in general.
Yes, I
Cheech?
do.
Okay.
Yes.
And all the, you know, like the your dates of expiring, like all the names are all updated. Certain things have been taken down. I think you have Eloise's hand up, and I think I know what she's going to say, but I'll let her go ahead and say it. On the, she wants to go back to the title page, I believe.
Yep,
Oh, okay.
Yep. I told you I wouldn't forget Eloise.
I represent the housing partnership, not the housing authority. Berlin does not have a housing authority.
So I
All right,
made
we
that
can make that
change.
change.
Yep, I got that changed.
We,
Yep.
we tried to elevate you, Eloise. but If you don't want
Well,
it.
you don't have to, just put in the correct title.
All right, good. Anything else on that page? We've got everybody in from their appropriate appointing authority
Correct. Looks like it.
and good. And then the next page is just the table of contents, which if anything gets modified tonight and shuffles the deck, Maureen can take care of any of those changes. So the question, the question is, we assume that this is a plan that's looking forward. It's a plan, but it also entails a report. So the report is reflecting backwards in time. The plan is projecting forwards in time. So we questioned whether we were 2022. And I've thought about it some more, and I think it makes the most sense to call this the 2022 Community Preservation Plan. And the title comes from what the state requires us to do. So the fact that it includes elements that reflect back isn't the most important factor. It's a question of what we anticipate might be coming. And that's why it's a planning document rather than the annual report for the town report.
So you just did 2022, then is this really 2023?
Right, well, that's what I was gonna say. Do we just kind of abandon 2022
And call it 2023.
and then that way, when we do it next year at this time, at the end of the, and we
I mean,
just,
I mean, to me, this is guiding the next 9 months, 3 months of this year, 2 months of this year, and 9 months the next year, so, or 10 months the next year. So to me, it's more active in the next year, so 20.
So it's 2023.
So it's the year ending 2023.
right, because the first one we did was 2021, because that's the year that we did it, because that was the first year we existed.
Yeah, and we finished that about a year ago.
Probably a year plus a little bit. I think we
Yeah.
finished it in like August or September.
Well, plans aren't retroactive. I think your point's well taken. So if it's not retroactive, then it should be 2023. Or we're awfully late.
Well, I mean,
And we should start really early for next year.
in terms of a plan, though, I mean, it talk. To me, it gives sort of a framework of what we do, but when I think of plan as in really planning forward, I would expect something that had more something that said, hey, we're looking to get this piece of property, or we're hoping to do that. To me, that's more of the plan forward. I mean, we may call this a plan, but this seems to be more about operating procedures than, I don't think it's really spelling out what we're looking to spend money on or anything. I mean, I don't think it matters too much what number we put on it, but I would be comfortable enough calling it 2022, because it's not really, I think, specifying anything about a specific time of, it's not what we're trying to do in 2023. It's more, this is how we roll.
But I guess what Wayne is saying is that it's going to be dominated by 2023 because it's going to be utilized through that whole
Right.
cycle if we don't do this again until the fall next year.
Well, I
Right?
mean, if you read what's in the, right, if this is the time we're doing it, then you're planning now. I mean, this is when companies budget, plan, and do things for the next fiscal year, which typically is 2023. So to me, it makes sense if this is a calendar year plan. So, and plus, if you read the end of the first paragraph, it says what this plan is doing. It's talking about the definitions of the goals, the procedures that we operate by, it's a document for general information. It's a guidance for applicants. It's a blueprint for what we're trying to do. It's not saying we're going to definitely do all these things, but it's the framework. So I think the biggest thing is if the framework's going to change of what we're going to do, then we're going to plan for that. Say something comes up next year and we, from housing or whatever, we're going to, look at all the information we've learned this year and we'll make our plan next fall for how we're going to continue to work the next year. That's my view. It's not, because like you said, it's not a town report, it's a plan. This isn't
Right.
what's going to go in the town report. I mean,
Why don't we just leave the year out and just say, present the community preservation plan?
I think because it helps track, because it gets changed every year.
you'll know which one.
Yeah, we're supposed to
Well,
update the plan on an annual basis. So that changing the date would reflect that, I guess.
At least the effort to try to think about it, anyways, even if nothing changes.
So is there a consensus? What Carolyn, what do you favor?
2023.
And Wayne, 2023, and Julie, if you had a choice of a date, you'd choose which?
I don't know. I'm thinking, I don't know.
And
20
then and TJ was saying 22 and Eloise.
If you're talking about the past, I'd go with 22. At the point you're going forward, then you refer to 23.
Okay, and I'm inclined to go with 23, so I guess we'll go with 23. And if for some reason someone outside says that's not correct, we'll change it. But for now, let's leave it at 23. Good.
Like, do you have a comparison with other towns in their introduction page? Do they put the
Well,
year?
I figured what I'll do is I'll check with,
I looked at some, Julie, and you know what? Some go use the forward date and some use the date that they're making the thing in, so.
yeah.
Okay.
I think
I'll talk to- I'll talk
Concord
to-
goes forward, though. I do know that, and that was one of the basis that we had used at the last meeting, so.
Yeah,
mm.
all right. Anything else on page 3
No.
that people have thoughts about? All right, we'll go to 4. I wondered if right at the top of the page where we say the CPAC will be responsible for developing a community preservation plan, whether we also want to say developing and updating a community preservation plan, reviewing and recommending community preservation projects, because now that we've created the plan, our objective is to update it on an annual basis rather than just develop it, I guess.
You could say
People-
maintaining, you couldn't even have to say developing if it's already been created, but
So you just say updating?
Maintaining.
maintaining, I think.
Yep. You happy with that term?
I don't think you need to say both. I mean, if
So we strike developing and we say responsible for maintaining a community preservation plan. That all right with folks?
Yep.
Okay. Good. Anything else on page 4? All right, we'll go to 5. Now, Maureen and I talked about this section in red. I guess our question is, do you want it included in the, for a complete list? We could, of
Mm.
plans, documents, and studies, we'd include it in the appendix and shuffle them off to appropriate websites to find the full text.
As long as you put in the link.
In the appendix.
Right.
Yeah.
Or where you can find the appendix. I've got a
And
body.
The appendix is at the end of this document, correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
So the plans that we want to include are the housing production plan, the open space plan, the sections of the master plan that we've worked on. What else have we got out there that people think we ought to be trying to link to?
Maybe
The
the record.
historical.
Have you got a document, June, that would be up and running and on a website that we could link to?
That has to do with the projects that were funded. Oh, wait a
No.
minute.
Kind of like an overall goals and mission and hopes and dreams.
We don't have we don't have what some towns have, which is a preservation plan for the town. That has never been written.
Right.
That would probably be the most appropriate.
Well, this is something that we can add to as time passes. So if, I mean, even during the course of the year, if somebody said, here's some other things to add to that, we could certainly do it.
Now, June, do you guys, when you apply for grants, do they look for any kind of plan like that?
It's not the only grant that we've really studied in any detail is the MPPF grant from the Mass Historical Commission, and I don't believe that's a requirement that the town have a preservation plan. I'm sure, there's probably a way to make a statement that refers to such a plan and what the money that you're asking for would, presumably would relate to a big project that was included in the plan. But it's not a requirement as far as I know.
I know that like conservation keeps the open space plan current because we can't apply for state grants otherwise. So just something to think about
Yeah,
moving
no,
forward is, especially if you're gonna ever be asking for state money.
Yeah, well, I did attend a webinar with Jen Doherty, who is the person who reaches out to towns from MHC. So I have an idea of what's involved. And it's not that burdensome to create, but you need a lot of consensus. And the commission at that time didn't have that kind of consensus. So I just deferred it. But it's definitely a worthwhile thing to develop. And maybe we can, if we could get the Bullard House planning off and running, we could address, putting together a plan.
Randy? Have you made a decision about tomorrow?
Right.
Good. Okay, so we're all set there. We say appendix 2.
So just so we
Should
have
this be
house,
appendix, what is appendix 1?
and you had expended, let me just connect for the links, though, you're looking for housing, open space and master plan. It's just those three.
Yeah, the master plan will have a couple sections, but it'll probably be in one volume. So we'd start with those 3. Any
Okay.
studies? I'm trying to think of who's. If you've got studies that are older for the Bullard House, right, June? But they wouldn't be as relevant anymore.
We have a preservation plan that the last revision was 2016. And it's quite, I mean, it's a valuable document, but it really only deals with cosmetic and uses of the rooms as museum rooms. It doesn't tackle the problems we have in front of us right now, which are structural.
So is it relevant though in the long term?
Yes,
So then that's something that if you could share that so we could figure out how to link it up. It seems like that's something that ought to be involved here because it relates to the work that you're doing and we'll be doing going forward.
okay.
So if you can work with Maureen on that.
Sure. I don't know about the building surveys that Tim Walhuter did. Those are surveys, they're not plans.
Yeah.
They're a different animal.
So
But
let's just,
I can give Maureen that preservation plan.
good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that everything we have, I mean, I think we just have to point to the resources that are out there that will give people more information about what the vision is for the future. I mean, whatever the respective committees have done in their own regard, I mean, I don't think it's our job to push them to do more. I mean, if they're going to come to us for funding, well, then they need to have done their homework. But I think we're just trying to say, these are some of the documents in town that support, you know, what the plan is, because it's not our job to come up with all those plans.
Right. And so, and just pertinent to housing, historic preservation and open space and rec, really. Rec is there any written document that rec's ever generated that talks about objectives and goals other than the part that's in the open space plan?
No, but we can certainly draft that to include it.
I mean, is the open space plan section on rec satisfactory and enough?
I think it's satisfactory enough, but if we're linking separately, you know, conservation and historic and leaving rec out of it, I don't think the optics there is good. I would certainly, if we have the master plan in and then we link underneath that conservation, historic, I think we
Well,
ought to.
but it's not conservation, it's the open space and recreation plan is the name of it.
Right.
No, right. But
Yeah.
what you're gonna link in there isn't it the conservation plans?
No, it's the open space and recreation plan. I think you were it was updated,
Year and a half ago.
it was finished a year and a half ago, but I
Right.
think it was started like 2.5 years ago. Maybe
Okay.
even more. I worked with Greg Tremelling on it.
Right. And you're every 7 years for that now?
I think it's 10, isn't it? Oh, Lord, please tell me it's 10.
I think it's 7. Housing's 5. I think you're 7.
Okay.
Just
Start your
from-
engines.
So we're,
Good. Okay.
I would just say, just from a clarity standpoint, maybe put a comma after open space and recreation plan, comma, just so that people know those two things are one
yeah,
Yeah.
plan. Otherwise it gets, you know, your mind gets like, is it open
Right.
space plan, recreation plan, you know, so.
Right.
Right. Yep.
So,
Good. So is that appendix 1, Maureen?
mm,
Well, that's how I received it with the 2, so I don't know why. It
well,
was,
we
let's
don't
take
have
a
a-
look.
We don't have a 1.
yeah.
Was 1,
So that's recreation, that's housing,
did we have
glossary,
appendix, was
appli-
appendix 1 the
the application.
application?
Oh,
Might have
probably, yeah.
Yeah.
That also says,
Right.
it also says addendum 1, not appendix 1.
Or does it?
Isn't addendum 1 a
two.
specific historic thing?
Addendum
Yes.
2.
Addendum 2, June, isn't this specifically relevant to historic?
Addendum 2, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
No,
what I
it-
thought.
Maybe we didn't even put it in here, Tim, because we weren't sure if they were gonna, if you guys were gonna keep the links at all. So maybe
Yeah.
I just did away with that
Well,
part.
Well, there are
Right,
the
yeah,
whole-
this doesn't even have a heading.
Yeah,
So that's, but again, even this says open space plan, this title should be modified if it's,
yeah.
Right,
Yep.
yeah, open space and rec plan is what OSRP is, but yes.
Good. We'll get those cleaned up.
Alright.
And that's appendix 1 then.
Yes.
Okay. Now. That was page
5.
5. Anything else on 5? 6.
Going once. Okay,
6. Anything on 6? under process at the bottom.
Wait a minute, what's this red up here?
Oh, that's right.
This may include payments to
I-
local
Is,
regional housing.
is that a line that we want to keep in there, given the nature of the rest of that section?
I'm concerned about that unless we really know what that's gonna look like. I mean, if somebody came to us and said, well, what does that mean? I'd be like,
I think if we had a housing trust, which we've got, but we haven't populated it yet. They might flesh this section out with some more specifics about things that they anticipate doing, but that's an option that they might have on the table, but it doesn't seem like it's an option that's here now. And most of these are fairly generalized as opposed to as specific as this one.
I mean, is the fourth one the only thing targeted toward housing at this point? Because somebody else would have had to come up with a plan about how we would want to do that, correct?
Yeah, and the production plan is going to do that to some degree, but I mean, basically, this is preservation of open space, preservation of land for rec. Those are the two categories, then the historic one, and then we've got this section about housing. But I guess our question was, do we need to include this sentence anymore, or can we strike it for the time being?
I would
If-
strike that.
Yeah, if no one objects, we'll strike that.
Sure, right, especially because we don't really have any guidelines about how we would do that. We talked about several things, but we don't really have anything specific.
Okay, good.
Okay.
At the bottom, under process, should we pluralize commission?
What,
Yes, that's.
Yeah,
yes, well, everything else is,
Right.
So
Yes.
we're all set on that. We'll add that as,
Can we just go back up for a minute?
Yep.
I just want to go up just a bit. It says, does it say where the catalyst up ahead, about the next section up, go back up or? Okay. I just wanted to make sure it was consistent. This will be the catalyst because then it says it again. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
right,
yep. And 7. Anything on 7?
nope,
All right, 8.
Should be partially completes on the second
Yeah.
line.
Completed, huh?
I
Where are
think-
you?
I think,
Right there.
Up.
for
there's
the-
a typo there.
Yeah.
You also have different fonts going on. You got in progress is in a different font, so I'd make all the fonts the same.
Okay.
We've got,
Yeah, this whole column is a different font.
well, it's mixed.
Well, the heading,
Yep.
Yep.
I'd make it yellow. Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The,
So,
No, that's fine, because it was mine and Tim's coming together, so that makes sense that there's two different fonts.
yeah.
Yeah.
A clash.
Yeah.
under, for boathouse, we shouldn't use the word restoration. The word should be rehabilitation.
Yeah, do you want to say something about those terms, June?
Yeah, repair is not a term we can use.
Right,
In the CPA lexicon. There are 4 historic treatments that are available when you deal with the Secretary of the Interior's treatments for historic properties. there's preservation, which is to maintain and keep what you've got. Rehabilitation, which is, to correct something that's been degraded. There's restoration, which is putting something back to what it was originally. And then reconstruction, which is less common. But the foundation issue is really rehabilitation. I mean, in common parlance, you might use the word repair, but
Right.
we have to use
We
the
can't
word.
use that one.
That's
So-
right.
So we should also change repair under the basketball courts to reconstruction and rehabilitation, huh?
I don't think that's not the same criteria, I think, for rec.
Well, don't we end up in, does repair get us in hot water with
I think maintenance with. like,
maintenance gets us in hot water,
Maintenance is hot water with rec.
right?
Yeah.
Well, maintenance is hot water with anything.
Right, but rehabilitation is certainly appropriate, and if it keeps it consistent.
Yep.
And potentially out of hot water.
Yep.
All right.
Carolyn, you can also add pickleball courts too. It's not just tennis and basketball.
Right,
Thank you.
tennis, basketball / pickleball.
Right.
Right, and
Oh.
then under Lyman Linden, I'd like to see that be Horseshoe Pond land acquisition. Since that's now what it's going by.
Good.
I think the streets are good though, to let people know where it is.
Right, maybe underneath in parentheses or something.
So you want to say Horseshoe Pond land acquisition, Linden Street, Lyman Road after.
Yeah. That's what all the legal documents and everything call it, is Horseshoe Pond.
So do that in both places, Carolyn, right? So.
Yes, please.
There's also another issue with the Bullard House, and that is the use of the money for architectural services, architectural design and engineering.
That's separate from those two.
So is that this second one or is that the first one?
Well, our Article 22 that passed at the annual town meeting in May amended our previous our previous appropriation of 100 grand to include 30,000 that could be designated for architectural services, including design and engineering costs. Now I'm trying to remember the additional 100,000 was definitely for structural repair, but also included architectural services. I mean,
Do we have to get that granular?
I don't know.
Oh, I know, I'm asking the right. I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
Well, we've got room.
Right, you could write rehabilitation of foundation on house, including architectural / design.
It's
Or-
rehabilitation of Bullard House Foundation, including architectural services, design and engineering. That's a lot to stick in that little box.
And why is that necessary to include that?
Well, because when we apply for that MHC grant, we cannot, that's a matching grant, and none of that money can be used for architectural services. So,
But is it important that it's reflected here, June? In that way?
well, it was pretty important that we wrote the article in the motion to include, to include those, because the original article at the November 8th meeting in 21 didn't include anything for architectural. And we couldn't go forward at all because of that. And fortunately, the amended article passed to include those things. So I don't. I guess I don't have a good answer. I'm just,
So you'd rather err on the side of caution and have it there?
yeah,
Fine.
yeah. I mean, it was very important to write that article to include those other, the engineering and the design costs.
Yeah, when we crafted those articles, we paid pretty special attention to that this time around. So probably
Yeah.
it makes sense to throw something that indicates that that's the intent.
Well, is it better to put, do you need to call it the dollar amounts? Was it better to put, 100,000, of which 30K for? Or, but that makes that column then get muddied.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think we need the spell out of the 30,000. I think just getting that architectural services and whatever in there is the important part.
yeah.
I think what you guys have described makes sense, what Carolyn was saying. Or June.
Is that
actually,
clear, Maureen?
The way June said it, I think was clear.
I'm also not sure about the word support.
I removed that one already so that I could get room for the other stuff, so support's gone.
Okay, okay.
Good.
Well, I think the one about the purchase and protected conservation land is a good formatting thing because you have it in small font underneath it, the descriptor. I think that's just good to repeat that.
Okay.
Can fit more too.
Anything else here? Right,
Yeah, see, I think when you say too, that I think, just going back to this being the 2023 plan, I think the fact that you're putting the year-end balances as of the end of fiscal year 2022, I think that makes sense.
agreed,
Once we have numbers.
right? That has been the bane of this board, is getting accurate current numbers.
Is unencumbered UNEN or UNIN?
I believe it's EN.
It is, okay, I'm just being, I don't know. I'll Google it. Just to make sure.
Ian,
Yeah,
My spelling fails me.
Maureen, June sent us those numbers
Yes.
and that was sort of a attachment to us because she was asking Molly for verification. But we haven't heard any more in regard to that, right?
Yeah, the only thing I can tell you is that the Department of Revenue has not yet certified our closing.
Okay,
So I think the numbers are probably pretty accurate. I did want to just have a minute with June myself, but she doesn't even have a second. So, yeah, we would, on the assessor's end of it, we were just trying to jive out the abatements part of this. That didn't reconcile with what we had in our office. I think that's been worked out. But we're still looking to be certified as far as that goes.
So we can't include a fiscal year 2022 local surcharge in this slot yet.
Well, how could you not if you already know the state amount is 28,1,250 and it's 100% match?
Because that's for the surcharge from the prior year.
Right.
See that?
Oh.
Yep.
Oh,
I
okay.
was wondering about that too, and I'm like, oh, hey, those numbers match. Oh, hey, those numbers match.
Should it say
But-
the state fund amount, based on prior year, like as a little note underneath? Because I didn't even realize that until.
And these titles are in red because I didn't even know if those were the titles that you wanted to put on these charts. I was just, making charts.
No, I think this is good.
But you can change,
It's a giant pain in the ass because, so the fiscal year ends in June.
Right.
We vote, whatever voting we do in May, just prior to the end of the fiscal year. We should be finding out in a couple of weeks, right?
We find out in November what the state match is going to be.
For
Um,
fiscal year 2022.
Right.
Right, so actually, if this document is going to be called 2023, we can wait until we get that number and plug it in. Oh, no, because that's the local surcharge. Never mind.
See,
No, I think this makes perfect sense because it's the recap of the funding. We don't have the next year fund. We don't have
No.
fiscal year 23 funding yet.
now, as soon as that's certified, Maureen could plug the number into the local surcharge for fiscal 22.
Sure.
And we'll just, because it looks like it's going to be somewhere above 300,000 from what June sent us tentatively.
Awesome.
And if the state only matches us at 80%, let's say, because they don't feel that their revenue is substantial, and the governor earlier on had vetoed the extra 20 million from some other source, but whether that'll float back in, I think is still yet to be determined. And last year they got some additional money, which we didn't benefit from because we'd already maxed out at 100%. And the way the legislation reads, no town can receive more than 100% of their local surcharge. So
Right.
even though other people got an extra boost, we didn't. I think everybody got another,
Like 15% or something.
10 or 15%, right?
Yeah.
I think if this is, can I say something? If this is for the public to read, the citizens of our
Right.
community, and to understand how this money is dispersed, I don't think we effectively do that here. I think if we did fiscal year FY20 total revenue, and then under that wrote what historic spends, what rec spends, and open space, and what housing spends, like that, and then there's a balance, I think that will better allow people to understand where the funds are coming from. Because if I look at this and I'm part of this committee and I understand and have a pulse on it, I very much doubt most people will understand this.
What was the one above it? Can we just go back up for a minute?
Right, but Julie, this chart is not trying to say where the money went. This chart is just
No.
saying where it came from.
But that's
Sure.
up above. So I'm just saying maybe you need to flip it so that the revenue.
Oh,
that top.
put this up top on the
Start-
page before.
I mean, you could have I almost think like, well, this is historic. So this is, and maybe this needs to stay,
No, I think that's actually good though. Put where the money comes from first. And then where
Yeah.
it goes to afterwards in the document.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way, yeah. I think
Well,
flipping is a good suggestion. I just still think people have to toggle between the two to kind of say, okay, 77,000 came from here, from there. So if I add the 77 plus the 42, then I get this. I think it would be cleaner if it just said FY 2020, recreation this, conservation, open space this, blah, blah. I think it reads better. That's my suggestion.
can you just go down again, please, to the next fiscal balances?
I think it's
Oh,
not
wait,
fluid.
wait a minute, so,
Right, this will say a lot of that, Julie. Once we have those numbers.
I think is there any net? Or no? Is there any net number of revenue less total funds encumbered?
Well, we've got,
I mean, well, the difference here too, though, is I mean, these buckets are multi-year buckets, aren't they, up above? Because you're
Well,
saying.
these aren't actually even buckets. I think the chart of the projects should
Yeah.
kind of be thought of separately from these charts.
Right, but my point is that I still think you should put the revenues ahead of the balances. And then, but these are broken out by year, but when you get to this part about the unencumbered funds, funds spent, funds approved, those buckets, I don't know, I guess without seeing the numbers, it's hard to understand, but
Right,
you know, but are those compilations of multiple fiscal years in the unencumbered, spent and approved? I mean, what's unencumbered? I don't understand. Does that mean left over?
I think so.
So why would
Yes.
you put that? So to me, I'd put it approved, spent, and then remaining or something. You know what I mean? It's almost like, I'm not sure if that order makes sense.
theoretically, and tell me, Maureen, if this is incorrect, this number right here. And these totals should always be the same.
say that again?
So the total revenue, which will be this number, right? The surcharge plus the state match, total. And then total, come on, the total spent. Well, so total spent and total unencumbered should always be this total number down here.
No,
No, because you haven't necessarily spent it all. You don't
Right.
spend everything. Is there a?
Right, so
is there a-
spent and unencumbered together should always equal total revenue.
The unencumbered,
So not spent and not spent
Yeah,
should always equal total revenue.
That makes, yeah.
yeah.
let's see the heading of that chart one more, okay. Budgeted reserve, total
So
fund.
this chart here, if I'm understanding it correctly, is pretty much what the
You go back.
CP2 chart is that June sends to the state. So that's every year, these numbers actually go to the state.
Right.
On what's happening in the general ledger's part of the life. And that's why I want her to provide those numbers versus me trying to pull them off of the reports that we got back. When did we get them? In August, I think? Because it's not certified yet anyways.
So if we look at CP2, for instance, the balance reserved for open space at the end of June 30, 2022 was 48,466. Historic was 48,466. Housing was 125, and the budgeted reserve was 998. So those are categories that the state uses and that we have to report.
Right.
So what Maureen is saying is that we can populate these boxes with numbers that are certified essentially.
Mhm.
Once we get the approval from the state, which, you know, it won't be in the next couple weeks probably, but it should be soon. And then this would reflect the CP3 form.
Do we have
Yeah.
anticipated numbers, like what they should come in at? I mean,
Well, we've got what June reported to the state.
why don't we put that as like uncertified or just so we can see the numbers and make sense of it at some point? And that can be updated.
We could put an asterisk next to it and say
Pending certification.
pending certification, and then when the certification came in, certified as of, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Is that, are you comfortable with that, Maureen?
No, because I never like information out there that might be taken as gospel that's not gospel.
and even in a draft for us, so we can.
And even though it's just, I don't like, as an admin, the worst, oh, you didn't see that little asterisk there. Well, why are you putting that out there? If you know, it's like, you knew it wasn't gonna be correct. It's like,
I
but
guess
it's your committee, it's, you know, and, you
I
know.
guess I'd
it
love.
might not even be relevant to you know, the charts within the actual body probably might be more interesting to the people anyways. It's like, what did, you know, the tennis, you know, court cost, that kind of thing.
Right. Well, exactly. I mean, I don't know that anybody's gonna try and do their own reconciliation on any of this.
Right.
And if they are, they need like a hobby.
Can you just explain to me, because I'm new, because I guess I don't understand the undesignated versus the other three buckets. So the money that gets approved doesn't all get divvied up into the three buckets?
Correct.
So 10% goes to each automatically.
Okay, and the rest is 70% goes into the undesignated unless we've designated them.
But money can be designated
Ah.
for a project under historic,
Got it.
And-
Got it.
and that would be
Or any of
reflected.
the other buckets, yeah.
I understand now. I got it. That was enough of an explanation.
Yeah, and we can take 5%.
And we can take
for admin.
5% for administration. And I suppose we should be transparent about our administrative fees out of this whole thing too. So maybe we need to include that somehow. And it might not be in this chart, because all the administrative money that doesn't get expended in a given year goes back into the general fund. So we could just have a single line that said, you know, X amount of money was voted at town meeting to be placed for administrative uses. Something like that. Because we know what that number is.
Right. But yes, that 5% should be captured somewhere.
Mhm.
Yeah, because otherwise people are going to say, what are you doing? Where's that money? Right,
Right.
so, good.
In their reconciliation of the whole of our charts.
Yep.
Yeah.
So can I just ask a question? So the unencumbered is all the money that's ever been, so each year, if we've got 3 years, there's 10%, 10%, 10% in historical or whatever it would be at a minimum. Or affordable housing would have 10%, 10%, 10% from those. three
Correct,
numbers.
which is right, which is why I'm saying then
But that-
the spent and the unspent should always equal revenue.
No, I don't. think
Totals.
so. No, it's the.
Totals.
The unencumbered, it's the unencumbered amount.
Which is the unspent.
That top row
Yeah,
should equal the total at the bottom. Because that's all the money that's been raised and that's been divvied up into different buckets. Right?
I'm not sure that's what unencumbered means. Unencumbered means not spent.
Not,
Maybe we should not
Or-
use the
Well,
word unencumbered.
No, because. Okay.
or not allocated to one of the funds.
Well, I
Or
guess
you-
to me, it's like, I thought the point of the approved and spent was to keep track of how much got approved for a project, like for the Bullard House versus how much they've actually physically spent out of that amount. So what is unencumbered then? I guess I don't understand the definition.
Yeah,
Unencumbered means
me-
that we
can you-
have the money, but it's not earmarked for anything.
So it's not been approved for anything.
Correct.
yeah, because
So-
we've
so
got,
to-
like we.
so to me, it should go unencumbered, approved, and then spent should be on the bottom. Because that's gonna show you
The,
how much left they, because you could sort of look at. I mean, is the unencumbered gonna be keeping track of how much was ever allocated to historical open space and affordable? Is that gonna be like a historically total? I'm just asking.
only the money that hasn't been spent.
Show me the heading again of this chart. This is the year-end balances, so it's going to reflect the accumulated funds from all our years. Funds,
Right,
this
but
one really is just the annual, like this CP2 that goes to the state. That's really
Right.
what this is.
So
So
to me,
these numbers match the general ledger from the town accountant. It's what those are gonna be doing. The
So to me-
recap chart, probably from year to year, can track as you move forward, the total amounts of funding that happens.
So to me, what I think Karen was saying, so to me, the unencumbered and the approved should be the total of the amount that, they've still got.
Amount of revenue.
They've spent, the amount, right, the amount of revenue should be the unencumbered plus the approved, and the spent just shows you how far they've gone in using those funds. So I think that.
Correct.
that should
Yes.
be
Correct.
the bottom line.
so right now, for historic, we've spent $500,
Right,
and,
they've been approved 200,000.
and no one else has spent any money,
Right.
Except for me.
but we haven't spent it yet.
That's true. That's true. It's been
But I'm-
approved but not spent.
So the
But I-
CP2 is only saying $500.
So I mean,
It's-
is unencumbered like a term that we have to use because somebody else, because that's like the lingo?
It's an
Because to me-
accounting word.
Yeah, 'cause
Right.
to me, it's
Word.
to me, it's unallocated. I mean. 'cause
I agree.
Right. Unencumbered means unpromised. Allocated means well,
Whatever, I'm
I
just
guess
being
really
creative.
the same
I'm
thing.
new to-
Yeah, no,
I'm new to the
I,
table.
yeah.
I'm just giving ideas.
So
Oh,
we'll
this
work
is
with,
Page 7, guys.
Maureen and I will
You
work
know
with,
what?
Maureen
June,
and I will
right.
work with June on this because
Right.
we won't resolve it tonight, but we'll.
I was
we'll
just about to
redraft
say
it.
that, Tim. Let me talk to June and see what she thinks about these charts. And then, she would know how to talk to a regular resident, I think, on it. So that's good. Okay.
All right.
Good. All right,
All
page,
right. All right, we are
10.
actually on page 10, yay. Halfway through.
anything on 10?
That looks good.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Anything on 12?
11.
11 comes after 10.
My pages are all backwards in my my lap here. Anything on 11?
Mm-mm.
Everybody's happy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On 12, so the only thing I saw on 12 was that of the 350, if we're consistent with what we did
Right, up
with the
here.
others, we just need to break it out, and I can work with, I'll give Maureen those breakouts, because we've got it.
It should be in the warrant, right?
Yeah, it's 48 for 2022 open space and 17 for 23 open space and 283 from the fund balance reserve or whatever, so.
I like these little charts. I think they make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we'll change that little
Right.
block.
You may want to
And we'll
include
change
the
you-
year.
Yeah.
Because like these two votes were fall 2021, special town meeting, fall 2021, and then annual town meeting 2022.
And you want us to put Horseshoe Pond there.
Correct.
Yep. Okay,
Just again, if we're, if we're putting all of this way, it doesn't look like it was two votes at the same meeting.
good.
The only other comments I would make from a readability standpoint is just the headings on these charts is as big as the heading for each section. And I think it makes it harder to know, like, when are you skipping? So I might reduce the size of that bolded stuff on the top of each one just a little bit. So that the
Good.
recreation, the housing, those pop.
Okay, yeah, I see, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, like recreation, I was like, I think that's a good size.
Well, the other thing we could do is lower,
I think like that recreation goal size would be a good size for the head of those charts. I think then it would make
For
sense.
the proponent project
Yeah,
amount and
yeah, all that,
funding.
yeah, all those headers right there. Yep, in bold, yep.
the other thing we can do is put recreation, draw it right down so it heads the beginning of a new page. And so we end up with some blank space.
In
after
between
open space,
recreation
right.
and open, yeah.
Well, the other thing you could do is when you're saying CPA funded projects, you could put recreation, housing, CPA funded projects, recreation, CPA funded projects, just so it just
Yep.
helps.
Right,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I think it just so happens that historic ended at the bottom of a page and open space started at the
Oops.
top of the page.
June was just more concise than the rest of you.
Yeah, I don't know that it has to be, big extra white space. I think as long as you, use the title, use the different sections in there, like say, historic CPA fund or whatever.
Good.
It's great.
And we go to page 13.
Yep.
Everybody's happy?
Yeah, it's very consistent each section.
We go to page 14. Should we add, there has not been a proposal, a between Vin and,
There has not been any proposals.
yep, that's fine.
/ applications.
Does the date need to change? Because that says the end of the year hasn't ended.
Still on, still
MJ, the reason why I went with that date was because if there was going, but.
Right, if there was gonna be
there
anything
wouldn't
for
be
this
anything
year.
Approved until May now, because the deadline for the next application is December 1st, like you passed any fall application. So that's not to say they have to be, I'm married to it, but that's how I came to it.
Well, even
Well,
if we weren't doing anything with an application, in theory, one could come in at any point.
Yeah, but then it would be in your next cycle. Right?
Well, I mean, we wouldn't be dealing with it now, but we'd still, it would still
So
be.
what you're saying is we could very well get an application before the end of the year for fiscal 24 24.
20 next.
I mean, we could, you don't
Right.
even have, we could leave it without a date.
Right, you could just say
Yeah.
as of the printing
Oh,
of this
yeah.
plan.
Yep. I like
Good.
that.
And 15, you know, our glossary is in a weak state here. If we only deal with housing basically or practically, and we got that open space one. Maybe June can give us some of the terminology that they use in their field, and
Unencumbered.
unencumbered, we wanted to find that. Right?
Housing, recreational.
But if there are items that people feel ought to be in the glossary, that would certainly be appropriate to suggest.
Well, I think that chart that you're gonna fill in, I think defining unencumbered, allocated,
Yep.
or whatever spent, I mean, so it's clear that we, you know, you could explain what that is, that the project's been there, whatever, but they, you know, and that they have continued use of those funds or however, you know, I don't know. Those would be
Once
good.
we figure out what they mean, we'll put them in there. That's right. Good.
Once we know
All
what we're
right.
talking about, we'll tell you what we're talking about.
Page
Right.
16.
Application.
Do you want to share some of your thoughts, Maureen, about the terms we
Well,
use here?
Yeah, I think you all really need to just set up a policy or practice on how you want to do applications. I did, you know, and as did Tim, we looked at other, you know, communities. There are those that do the pre-application situation. Some just start with an application and then, you know, then ask for like, you know, a PowerPoint or whatever. But the only one thing would be, we would add, you know, this information about when I'm in the office for you folks. If somebody did want to come in, and then we can get things stamped. Obviously, the mail, I think, will still be the same. I think the dates are correct. I just wanted you guys to review that. But I think one of the communities, maybe it was Hudson, Tim, I don't know if you remember, it feels like it was forever ago, that Friday that we were in. They actually had like a flow chart, like this is the first thing you do, the second thing you do, and that kind of thing. That chart was, that kind of thing could be very helpful, I think, to an applicant on what the steps that they have to do. I did add a couple of things on the actual application, but I don't think the application's ready to go into this plan yet. I still think that you as the commission really need to kind of nail it down to make sure it has everything that you need on it. But other than that, I mean, I think this tells people, you know, how to get us.
I think that's it.
The only other thing is, I think, setting up a regular meeting so that when an applicant does come in, or if I email an applicant, I can almost already assign them to a meeting agenda versus playing the back and forth. Like, you know, like if your applications are due for June 1st and you're going to be closing the warrant in February, we really should have those meeting dates set so an applicant can plan their life and getting in front of you also. But that's a little bit aside from this part of it, you know, because you just got to give them the opportunity to, you know, get you what you need so that you can recommend them for town meeting. Is that what, I think that's everything we talked about that Friday. It feels like it was forever ago.
Yeah, it does seem like a long time ago.
It really does.
I just have about the application deadlines. How come the special fall special town meeting, there's only a 2-month variance there compared to the annual town meeting, which is 5 for the application deadlines?
because the warrant is usually, warrant closes usually in
Around-
February for the
Around
annual town meeting.
Valentine's, yeah.
Right, for the annual town meeting, which is in May, but the warrant for a special town meeting usually closes closer to the date of the town meeting.
So it's about 2 months for both then.
And that's the other thing, I think, Tim, and we talked about this too. Do we want this in your plan if we're not certain?
I would just say if held, you know.
Because if held, yeah, like you have to
Right.
make, like you have to have people.
Have to
understand-
put that,
Yeah.
yeah, that caveat in. And we had also talked about having rolling application, like you can put in an application anytime.
Yeah,
It's just if you want to be considered for the annual town meeting, we have to have it by December 1st. If you want to be considered for a special town meeting, if one's going to be held, it must be by September 1st.
and that's
Um,
why having the dates set and especially if we're going to be staying remote, having those dates set. So like you could literally at your next meeting, if you had an application in, actually meet with an applicant for the May. If like, someone dropped off an application, I emailed them, here are some meeting dates that are set with the commission. Do any of these work for you? Then say, you know, do a draft agenda and then confirm it that way. Because
I mean,
kind of takes out that legwork as far as the back and forth for getting that pre-application situation, if you're going to do pre-application.
I mean, you could, I mean, if you wanted to make this, I mean, you know, people don't read stuff, but that, then it says, you know, the applications may be submitted at any time, could be, you know, anytime, you know, are encouraged to be, you know, submitted well in advance of deadlines for town meetings or something like that.
Yeah, like if someone was to call me on the phone, I would definitely say, you know what, I'm in the office on Wednesday afternoons from 2:15. Why don't you come on in and let me see what you have? And, you know, and we can go through it. And then if it's ready to stamp, like, so to me, I think having that person standing with them to start with sometimes can be very beneficial. And then that's when you can get some of the kinks out as far as the dialogue goes on what expectations might be coming their way. So that's just some of my thoughts in regard to getting applications.
I would say I'm on this first bullet, just take the comma out after May. It doesn't need to be a comma there.
Oh, you're right. Yep.
Sorry, if I wrote it, I'd make all the same mistakes. I'm a good
No,
proofreader.
listen, you know what,
Out of
Wayne,
my
this is
own
good
stuff.
because next year we're gonna fly right through this.
Right.
We'll have, we're gonna have the situation.
But I
In
do
fact,
think,
I like annual town meeting. I don't even know, but you guys always do have it in May. I do understand that, but.
I do think what Carolyn said about fall special town meeting, like a parentheses if held or something like that.
Help, yeah. I've got that.
All right.
But so are we going to keep in the word pre-application or just application or submittal of application? How, what?
What did we
Your
call?
application now, Maureen, that we've generated, it simply says application, right?
Well, no, I updated it after one of the meetings that we discussed it, and I think I did put pre-application on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what's the
Idea.
benefit? The thought is that if we ask people to give us a pre-application and we term it that way, they can come in and not having spent a tremendous amount of time putting all the documentation behind it. And we can say, what you're proposing isn't fundable. It can't be, CPA money can't be used. And so they haven't spent a year putting together a immense package.
Okay.
And so if
Exactly.
they come in with a pre-application and we say, and we review it as a committee and say, you can go forward and outline what it is we want. And based on a number of things, the complexity of the project, whether we think we're going to have to go through an intense procurement process, you know, how much information are we going to need? Like Julie's discovering now, finally getting all the
Yeah.
detail work done for the
Yeah.
tennis court and basketball court and pickleball. And if we had been clearer about what we wanted, it would have saved you guys a lot of time. Right?
No, I think, I think the issue with that was we have people on our committee that have never drafted something of that capacity.
Right. But there's going to be a lot of projects that are going to be like this. Maureen is going to be going through the procurement training process. Kristen has got procurement training, and we as a committee need to articulate more clearly to any proponent that the types of information that we're going to need before we go to town meeting. So I don't think we want to be in a position where we're approving projects until we have a clearer understanding as to the full extent of the project and the full potential cost and what those other funding sources might be. Because if we're only partially funding, we need to be confident that the funds are there from other sources to complete the project in a timely fashion. At least that's where I'm coming from, and based on what I've seen from Hudson and some of these other towns.
So just, sorry.
Go ahead.
So you're really talking about making it a pre-application qualifying or a qualifying application?
Yeah.
So is that kind of what you're trying to get at with the application that we have out there? That it's a pre-qualification application?
Because right now it's a
A
simple
lot of words, but
two-sided, you know.
But I think that's your point. It's almost like, come before before you go spend all the money in designing your building, come to make sure it's an allowable use kind of thing.
Yep.
Do we need to, I mean, I don't know that we need the naming of it's going to make all the difference, but I mean, we are talking about a pre-qualifying meeting to then come in before they come back with the final application.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that renaming.
Right, I think it will also depend on the project too, like take the current project that we have before us, the fence at the community garden.
Yeah.
Don't know that we would have necessarily needed to go through both steps with that. He came in with the application filled out, he came in with a quote.
I mean, if somebody can do the legwork and it's fun and they come in prepared, it's great, but
Right,
and how do you do that for everything? I mean, if it's a pre-qualification and the person says, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, I already have a quote, all this other stuff, you can say like, that looks good enough to me, to, just move it forward.
So
But-
what I hear is we're saying we're going to continue to use pre-application on that single form. And then in that discussion with people, the preliminary discussion, we're going to articulate a series of other steps, maybe the flow chart that Maureen is talking about that we see from some other towns that really
Yeah,
gives them more explicitly what steps they need to take next in order to come to us with their final proposal that we would then vote on to place on the warrant.
well, I think that kind of visual is going to make sense to show people, like, come talk to us before, if you're not sure that it would qualify, this is when you come talk to us.
right.
Okay,
Tim, can I just ask you a question just for clarity? I thought I heard you say that CPA is only partially funding projects.
sometimes we only partially fund projects, right?
Right, but that's not that's not all the time.
No, I mean,
Okay,
I mean, I think we funded the scoreboard and
Mhm.
well, you got money from the bank for the other parts of that. So we didn't fund the whole scoreboard.
Right.
And you've got funds coming from some other sources to finish your tennis basketball, pickleball.
Yeah.
And historic preservation is going to be going after matching money from the state. That's a match, not a grant. So they have to actually expend money to match what the state's going to give them. But in the case of the open space acquisition, the significant amount of, I mean, you've got multiple sources in that one too. So it seems like most of these, even if they're small, might very well be fairly complex in their funding.
Right. But again, for example, the fence at the community garden, it would
Yep.
be 100% CPA funds.
Yeah, that's,
Right.
I
I think town meeting would always be happy if there were multiple sources.
Yeah.
Especially for bigger projects, but it's not a requirement.
Yeah.
right.
But like that would be one of the criteria when I was in Groton. That would give us, like, you know, I told you how they did that little points thing. If there was somebody else putting up money, that might move a project in front of another project because there's already money kind of in that pipeline for that. So that was, you know, when it gets more competitive. Right now, it doesn't seem too competitive, but if it starts getting competitive, those are things. If someone's going to put some money up, it makes more sense. The other thing that I was just thinking while you guys were all talking, and I just kind of lost what my thought was. Hopefully it'll come back to me. It was something about the application. Oh, will you, and I don't know if it's significant to put this in the plan or not, and that, Tim, I didn't think of this that Friday we were speaking, but will you wait and approve everything at one meeting because you don't know what might come up, and you want to make sure that you don't promise something to somebody if there seems to be something more significant to the town that comes up? If you're following what I'm saying, so like,
I think, wasn't that part of the reason why we set a deadline instead of having a rolling, like
Yeah,
having
yeah.
all of it be rolling?
right, so you will, like, so if someone came in and talked to me and I would say, well, you know, you would go through this process and then they would let you know that there's eligibility, but then there'll be one final meeting where applications are considered to be moved forward onto the warrant to ask for town approval. Is that the process that this commission will do? Or will they know, like, if they came in January, they would know, or would they have to wait till you finalize the warrant? So I get, like, so again, I can only go back to what my history is. All applications were considered at the same meeting and votes were taken on recommendations or not.
Well, and of course, what you've talked about as a model from some other towns is a
Yeah.
public hearing. And
Yeah, so, yeah.
we
that-
haven't decided on that yet, but if we decided to go that route, it would certainly seem as though all the applications for a given town meeting would be finalized on a given date. I'm comfortable. I mean, the planning board's approach is to capsulize all the different projects and vote on them all at the same time. And I guess I find that cleaner. I guess I'm interested in what other people feel. I just assume we did it on one occasion and considered all the applications as in their final form for a final vote at the same time for the annual town meeting, or the special.
I think if funding's an issue, that's why the current one for the fence got bumped, because there wasn't enough funding, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So, I mean, I think you have to make a final, but it doesn't hurt to be saying, you know, we support we like the project, we support it. It's going to come down to a final, vote based on, what funding is as we come up to it. I mean, if like some big opportunity came up for, another piece of recreational land, that might take precedent. But
Mhm.
I think
So
the
in
other-
general, what we're saying is that we'd finalize everything at the same time.
which makes sense. why I
Right,
put the-
which is pretty much what we did for
Yeah.
the spring town meeting. There were several projects before us. We kind of weighed them all. And
Well, that would go into a flow chart, to say like, show when the final vote is kind of thing.
right,
Okay,
Just one thought as we were just talking about this funding, that part that we struck under housing about, individual grants. I'm just thinking about like, imagine that trying to go in front of town meeting if you don't have really good clarity, like, why are you giving it to this one person? So I think, that's going to be a really hard sell. Unless, you had a super historic house that you were trying to preserve in the house, in town. I think that would be such a limited use. I can only imagine a handful. But there might be some.
yeah, I mean, and it might not be an individual as much as it might be an entity, some nonprofit that's not
Right.
town affiliated that wants to work on a project, so. All right, we're on,
Keep
we
on
finished
rolling.
16, we
yep,
finished 17.
right.
The
Then-
addendum is specific to the historic preservation issue, so no one has any changes on 18, right?
Correct, and I believe that wording has to stay the way it is anyway.
Is that an appendix or is that part of the plan? That's what I mean, is this just an additional piece of information that needs to be referenced? When it
So,
comes to the historic referencing this, or is it?
so as a addendum is a specific term that's used for this text, right?
What does it only-
Addendum 2 is part of the title.
Not, I mean, whether it is or isn't, I mean, should this be under the historic part, or is this addendum to like an appendix to the entire plan? Because I mean, you have to refer to it when you're talking about historic
Right.
CPA projects, but like now you've put it after all this other stuff, so it's
Right.
like, why?
Is it-
Why did we go down and now we're jumping back to historic? So is it referenced in the upper part and it's at the end for your information? Or does this?
It's to follow the application, Wayne. This is more, this is relevant to.
That's right.
Historic application. So I think that's why in the first plan, they put it with the application information.
That's right.
Okay,
But it could, I mean, not that it can't go up there. I'm just saying that's where it was previously.
Right, but it is something that it's people who are submitting requests for money for historic projects need to be aware of this as well,
that's fine,
is my understanding of that.
that's fine.
Right, supplemental information required for historic projects. And then we just need an appendix 1 at the
Right.
top of this. And change open space plan to open space and recreation plan.
Yep.
And that's it.
Any other thoughts?
Okay.
Good. So we'll tidy this up and we'll pump it back out to folks and vote on a final approval for it. We'll see if we can get some better figures from June and stuff.
When's our next meeting?
I was gonna say, we have
We-
next Wednesday planned.
And what's
So
after that?
I don't think we have any other meetings planned after next Wednesday, not that I have on my calendar anyway.
The
Yeah, we-
9th, we have the 9th of
Of November.
Which is the day
Of-
after elections, yeah.
And what-
Oh.
And what time is it?
I cannot make that.
I always put you guys in for 7:30. I will have to be honest, I don't know. I mean, I could probably get these revisions done. But interesting enough, next Wednesday is my first state DOR procurement start
Right.
thing, so.
I just as soon wait and give us more time, because I think trying to finalize these charts and figures with June is going to take longer than a week.
But we don't
Okay.
have any, we don't have
Right.
anything specific going on other than this, correct?
Correct.
So,
So
Right.
we,
I'm not available on the 9th.
and so we set out a number of dates. If you got those in front of you, Maureen?
You know what, I might. No, I
Because we
cannot.
talked to Mary about dates all the way through December.
Yeah, I think we went as far as December 14th.
Now,
Um,
Here's there doesn't seem to be a plan for a special town meeting. And so one of our items on the agenda is the fence. We're not able to move forward with the fence as a proposal if there's no town meeting. So it's not pressing that we we're not trying to prepare for a town meeting in December, let's say. So if we were to wait till that December date to vote on this plan, the world isn't going to come to an end.
Well, especially now that we've decided it's the 2023 plan.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
That gives us
We
more
have until the end of December to get it done.
And so what was that date again, Maureen? December
The
what?
The 14th Wednesday.
Did people have an idea as to whether that date works for them?
It's perfect for me because the next day I go on vacation.
There you go.
So the next week I'm gone.
So if that works for
I have,
everybody,
yeah, I have one Wednesday a month that I get together with a friend of mine. The November one is the 9th and the December one is the 14th.
So do you want me to try?
And I'm
Dec-
reluctant to change that because we get together one night a month.
if
Can we do December 7th?
I
the
can,
7th is conservation,
December
about the
7th is
6th?
the 6th I can do.
okay. You want to see if you
December
can get the
6th.
6th for us, Maureen? Okay,
so I'll see if I can change our 14 to December 6th.
okay,
I'll
and
do
then,
that tomorrow.
and we'll cancel the meeting for the,
November
26.
And the 9th?
The
on
9th.
the 9th. So,
We'll change it, okay.
and Maureen and I will see if we can package some of these figures into some charts that are appropriate with June and fit with the state's terminology, and then we'll get all that information around everybody before we meet again, so.
And on the glossary stuff, go ahead and just shoot me
Yeah.
anything that you think needs help being understood. I'll go ahead and just keep adding those as they come in.
Yeah, especially, I mean, June, you've got some terminology that we probably want to include this in addition to restoration or whatever the one we've got in there is, so. Now, so we can't do anything with the fence. I'll be in touch with Carl about that. That was the next item on the agenda. The next meeting we've already talked about, that was on the agenda. And there isn't any public to have public input, so that doesn't need to be addressed. Is there anything anybody else has that they want to bring up?
I
job.
would make a motion
Holy
to
mackerel.
adjourn.
Oh, wait, Eloise has
wait,
got her
wait.
hand up.
Do you know when we'll get the numbers from the state for this year's?
Match?
Yeah,
We should get it in the first week or so of November.
Well, we'll have it for December then. That's
Yes.
all
Yeah.
I wanted to know. Thank
Yep.
you.
That's true. We'll be able to include that as well. That's good.
Yeah,
All right.
Stuart hasn't been sending out emails quite as
The last one we
frequently.
got said, do what you can to try to tell your legislators to support any increase, but and we got a nice note. Did I send that around to people? We got a note from Chase saying, thanks for your dues. I don't know if I shared that with everybody or not.
You did. But it seems like it was like 3 months ago or something.
Right.
Which you did. That's why I figured I was thinking of you all this afternoon. I said, I haven't sent a reminder out. It feels like I haven't talked to anybody in a while. So, yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, Maureen, thank you for all that you've done on helping to move this project along, and
Yes.
everybody else's
Definitely.
input. In June, the non-voting member, thank you. I know your schedule's busy. Roll call. We got a motion. Do we get a second?
Second.
Second,
All right, and a roll call. Carolyn,
Aye.
Julie. Did we lose her already?
I know. Well, she's there. Just can't
Oh,
hear
she's
her for
there.
some reason.
Yes, she says yes. Eloise,
yes.
MJ,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Tim, I. So it's unanimous.